Jacqueline Baumgarten is forging a new future within the recreational marine industry with peer-to-peer boat rentals for her company, Boatsetter. She recognizes a younger, more diverse boating demographic that reflects 21st century America's enthusiasm for a more shared economy. She is successfully introducing the world of boating to the 80 million millennials of Generation Share who are not necessarily interested in things but are looking for new and exciting experiences. In 2012, she founded Cruisin', an early pioneer in the P2P boat sharing space, though it wasn't always easy to maneuver in the male dominated marine world. Jacqueline answered the question by securing a merger with her company, Cruisin', and one of her top competitors, Boatsetter. The new Boatsetter now has the largest network of marina partnerships in the industry, thousands of certified captains, the best in class insurance, and thousands of boats around the world. She has had more than 13 years of successful leadership experience in strategy and financial planning, largely with Fortune 500 corporations, and has guided the acquisition and investment decisions of companies ranging from startups to $1 billion organizations. Well, Jacqueline, it is just terrific to have you with us today in our Women in Business show. I mean, you have so much uh, background and energy. I'm just so excited to interview you. So, welcome.
Oh, Gail, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I've said a little bit about your background. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us that you think is important to who you are today and where you're heading?
Oh, certainly. I mean, it's a broad question. So where to start? I think, a funny little fact about me is that I've grown up with three brothers. I'm from California and grew up quite as a tomboy. So, having operating in a male-dominated environment is a very comfortable place for me to be. And as a teenager, I worked alongside my father, who was a serial entrepreneur and commercial real estate developer. And so that set the foundation for wanting to build something and have a very long lived and fruitful career. So I went off, my undergraduate was at Wellesley College. I received my Bachelor of Arts degree there. I then worked as a strategy consultant for Fortune 500 companies in New York for several years and followed that up with my MBA at Stanford Graduate School of Business. And over the last decade plus, since graduating from business school, I've spent my career working predominantly in male dominated professions, from technology to commercial real estate development and consulting. And I always somehow seem to find myself in roles where men have typically led. And, I feel very comfortable and I've been very, very fortunate to have great mentors and guides and people who have enabled me to get to where I am.
Well, now, you've worked in some really fabulous places, and you have a terrific educational background. So, what made you leave corporate America to start your own company, Cruisin'? Which I think just the name itself, Cruzin. I think that's fantastic. So what made you leave that wonderful, what some people would say, ideal life, with
Yeah.
everything, the good salary, the benefits, all the rest, to start your own company?
Gail, I have to be completely honest with you. It was the scariest decision I've ever made in my life. I was, at 30 years old, making $250,000 with a secure job and a great future ahead of me in a corporate environment. Taking that leap of faith and starting something from scratch is very scary. There's no guarantees and there's no off switch. It requires every ounce of energy. I'm taking all of the experience I've garnered in years past and learning how to build teams and learning how to lead and develop organizations. It wasn't until I felt that I had reached a point in corporate America where I had learned enough and I had confidence in myself and my ability to lead that I took that leap of faith. And let me tell you, it was scary. I put everything I owned in storage. I sold my condo and I put my savings into launching this company and didn't take a salary for the first 2 years and then went out and tapped my network of friends and family based on the reputation I had built and the credibility I built amongst my network to raise our seed capital that helped us get kicked off and started. And that was how that path began. But that was a very scary decision.
I would think so because I'm sure that the women who are listening to this show even some of the men. I mean, we do have male listeners who would say, "She's crazy. Why? Why did she do that?" So, because you grew up around entrepreneurs, I mean, did you always know you would want it to be your own boss, or, I mean, I would think in your early career of the education, you were aiming towards corporate America. I mean, that's kind of what that led to. But where did that idea that I really want to do my own thing come from?
So, I am truly blessed in that I had great role models. I come from three generations of entrepreneurs. So,
Now, Jacqueline, you have a wonderful educational background. I mean, I assume you did that because of wanting to get into corporate America. But what made you decide that you wanted to be your own boss? I mean, that really is something amazing. I mean, I can understand it because I've been my own boss my entire life. However, I did not go in with the idea of being a part of corporate America because I knew I could never take orders from anyone else or be able to do something that I thought was wrong or not smart. And so I just decided that every mistake I make will be my own. So tell us about what made you want to be an entrepreneur.
certainly. So, Gail, I was very blessed in that I had great role models that showed me that entrepreneurship was a possible path and a successful path to a fulfilling lifestyle. I have three generations of entrepreneurs in my family: my grandfather, my father, my older brother. They each have founded and run and built their own successful organizations. So I knew deep down that it was possible, and I always knew that it was a path and an option available to me. But I didn't want to just jump right in, after college. I wanted to build a foundation of knowledge and experience and resources so that when I did decide to take that leap of faith that we talked about, that I had something valuable to bring to the table. And that was the main decision as to why I went to corporate America. Actually, one of the options that I had in coming out of business school was to work for a company called Westfield Corporation. They are one of the largest shopping center developer REITs globally. And it was a position where they'd hire one person out of Harvard or Stanford each year, and they put you into this rotational training program. And I was very fortunate to be the one selected the year I graduated from business school. And I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to build, to continue my education in business and learn from other people's mistakes or successes. And it was invaluable. And after 6 years of working there, I finally had the courage and felt I had the knowledge and the experience to take that leap and start my own company.
Wow. Well, I'm familiar with Westfield because it's very big out in California. Where I also have some homes. But I also wanted to ask you this. I'm very in. Well, I know a lot about boats only because my husband was a boat fanatic. We used to have three boats in our backyard for no intelligent reason at all. However, what is this peer-to-peer boat rental company? Where did you come up with the idea for that? I had never heard of that before.
Oh, certainly. So the idea was actually inspired by my two brothers. They're both boat owners. And back in 2012, they both called me, independent of each other, frustrated, saying that they were going to have to sell their boats because of their busy lifestyle. They hadn't used them or spent enough time on the boats in an entire year's period. And, it was expensive. It was costing them a lot of money to store and maintain the boats. And they were considering selling them. And they were sad about that decision. And, I knew that there had to be an alternative. And I suggested to them, well, would you consider renting out your boat instead of selling it? And they said, yes, of course. But, my insurance and traditional recreational insurance policies don't allow you to rent your boat. And so that's what started me on the path of peer to peer boat rentals. Now, the idea of peer to peer is the ability for somebody who owns a private asset to be able to rent it out to someone else who's qualified. And the sharing economy is actually quite relevant in all of our lives, whether we realize it or not. There are companies like Uber, companies like Airbnb, Lending Tree, Etsy. All of these companies that are billion-dollar entities have all built themselves on the foundation of the sharing economy. And what Boatsetter is, and Cruisin' is now Boatsetter. What Boatsetter is the leading online platform where private boat owners can rent out their boats to qualified boaters or with a U.S. Coast Guard certified captain. We have thousands of captains on our platform, and we put them together with boats and boat owners, and we ensure the transactions and make it simple and easy for anyone to get out on the water to have a great time.
Wow, that's fantastic. I have to say, I wish that had been around when my husband was alive because he was a boat captain, amongst other things, and he just loved to boat. But our boats did sit most of the time because he couldn't get anyone to help him on the boat, and
Well,
we didn't. We were both working so much, we didn't really get a chance to use them. And I have to say, a very sad fact that when he passed away, we sold all the boats because we knew it was never going to be the way it was. So I think this is brilliant, but I'm sure that you had to face some hurdles when you got started. So tell us a little bit about those.
well, certainly. At the time, the idea of a peer-to-peer boat rental was just a pipe dream, and that's because the infrastructure just wasn't in place to allow for boater-to-boater rentals. It was impossible for boat owners to find insurance that covered this occasional rental. So, one of the accomplishments that I'm truly most proud of is I spent 8 months before we launched the company hitting the global insurance markets to put in place the first of its kind peer to peer insurance policy. And I was able to work hand in hand and convince one of the leading maritime insurance underwriters out of the UK to create this new policy, which is now considered the gold standard for coverage in the boat sharing market. And what it does is it protects the renter, the boat owner, the captains, and in the case where we're working with the marina as well. And that becomes primary and exclusive during the rental. So it doesn't touch the boat owner's primary insurance policy. Ours kicks in. And that was what launched the peer-to-peer market in the marine industry, not only for Boatsetter, but for the entire industry.
I thought for a minute there you were going to tell us that you had your own developed your own insurance company because that sounds like something that you would do. But anyway, you said that you had no fear because you'd always worked in male dominated industry and so forth. But I'm sure there were obstacles that you faced, when you went into these industries as a woman. I mean, it didn't intimidate you, but there were still obstacles there. What were some of those things that you had to face?
One example in launching my company here, at the time it was called Cruisin', now Boatsetter, I had set my sights on building a partnership with one of the leading marina owner operators, a company called Western Marinas. And they have a very large presence in Florida. And I knew if I could secure a deal with them, that the traction that we could build there would set us apart from our competitors. So I used every network and opportunity that I had to try and get a meeting with the president, a gentleman named Bill Anderson. And I was rejected, once, twice, three times. People that he knew that he had purchased marinas from basically couldn't get me a meeting with him. He wasn't about to waste the time with a nobody in the industry who's a young girl who has this idea that hasn't been proven. And so this is where being smart and resourceful really kicks in. What I decided to do at that point was I did some research to find out who had funded the last development project and the loan for the acquisitions of their most recent marinas. Turns out it was a company out of Los Angeles that I have very close ties to, an investment real estate bank. So I leveraged those contacts to set up a meeting with the president, Bill Anderson, and his CFO. And after setting up a 45-minute meeting, I was able to basically blow him away and build a personal connection and relationship based on what we were building and showing him the mock-ups, the diligence, the research that we had done. And a 45-minute meeting turned into 3 hours. And the next day he called me and said, okay, I'm going to give you access to our prize marina, Harbortown Marina here in South Florida. If you can prove to me that you can make this model work here, I'll open up the portfolio. And I will tell you, that was a meeting on a Friday afternoon in Los Angeles. By Wednesday, I had a lease signed and had moved my team out to Florida, and we were on the ground for a 6-month pilot in Harbortown Marina. And from there, we have Bill Anderson now as one of our largest advocates and greatest mentors, and access to his entire portfolio.
Well, it just shows our listeners that you really have to be persistent. And I've always said that, success equals persistence and discipline. And if you have